My name's Conrad Rempel. I live in Winkler, Manitoba, and I've been farming for about 20 years now. We run 8,000 head on 3 separate lots. Out of the 8,000, we own about 25%, and we custom feed the remaining 75%. So the cull potato program that we're using, we work very closely together with a large potato farm in the Winkler area, Craker Farms. So we have a really unique program with them. We pick up their cull potatoes out of their Winkler processing plant, be 2 to 3 loads, probably a day for the most part. And in return for the potatoes, we give them manure out of this feedlot for all their organic production. They do a lot of organic production in the area, and it's really unique. We work really well together, and so in spring we haul all the manure into compost rows about a half mile away from the site here, and then they run the composter through there 6 to 8 times in the summer, and then fall we go and apply it to the organic fields, and they use this manure for organic production of the potatoes. So with the organic production and all this manure going to Craker Farms, we generally clean out right after seeding in June. So we clean out all the pens in June, and then we get that done as soon as we can so they can get their composter running through the rows, get it ready for fall. And then generally we do a late fall application. We kind of start middle of October, and we try to get the acres done here by manure deadline.
A lot of waste potatoes coming out of storage, out of the plants, out of the Winkler area, and be it either a cull or the size isn't right or the quality isn't right, and those potatoes bump out pretty heavy typically after harvest, and again depending on the time of year when they're busy at the plants shipping potatoes out. So for us, we've seen it as an energy source. We definitely, if you want to compare it to another grain, it would be similar to barley. It'll be running at about an 83 TDN, probably about a 10.5 protein, and about an 80 to 85% moisture on most of the potatoes. We've done some small changes, not big. We're adding bunks. If you look behind, you'll see the concrete bunk that the potatoes are in. That was added later on. We're looking for more expansion in the future, and maybe commodity sheds, that type of thing, just to keep, get away from some of the bins that we're running right now, just so we have open loading with the payloaders and so on. I hadn't worked with potatoes much. I seen different producers doing it, and I seen some of them would go up to 75 to 100% of the diet was potatoes. I mean, of course they had to get some roughage in just to keep the rumen functioning, but seeing some of those numbers, we didn't feel comfortable with that. All the performance that we've seen that we can get out of these cattle, we find we're probably going to run between 20 to maybe 50%, but usually it's between 20 and 40% inclusion on a dry matter basis. The potatoes arrive, again, we try to get them into the bunk, and freshness is so important. In wintertime, one of the challenges is freezing potatoes, so sometimes we'll roll them right away and then get them into a pile and feed them that way, get a little more heating through that process. And then from there, when the guys do their rations, we feed twice a day, so they're included in all of our rations that we run on a performance beef system that we have in the tractors and in the trucks. So they're all fed through that system, summer and winter. Summer, again, we try to keep freshness. We don't want to get green on those potatoes. That is an issue as well. Probably the biggest challenge right away was how do we break it down, right? Like how do we get it into a form where the cattle aren't going to choke on it? And we have to find a way to break it, but not too far. And if we process too early, what we find is we lose our shelf life really quick. We have to keep it in a solid form as long as we can, and then once we start breaking, we usually start feeding. And again, freshness from the plant to us, not getting those potatoes too cold is important, and not getting them too hot. We get quality breaking down at both ends. It's a roller mill essence that we're using here, although it is pretty much steel fingers stationary on one side, and then you've got a rotating finger coming through on the other side, and it's breaking those potatoes. And really all we're trying to do is get a break on them, just to prevent that choking side of it, and if we can, to prevent some sorting. And that's a little bit tough because the cattle know what they're looking for, and they look at potatoes as candy once we start dropping it into the bunk.
So this is the steer lifesaver right here. On the off chance, which is not often, once or twice a year that we get a potato lodged in the throat. We slide this down the throat, and the inside is a knife. So we actually put it down this way. When it goes into the throat, it often jumps up over the potato. Either it pushes it in to the stomach or it jumps up over. And then when we pull back, this knife hooks the potato, and as we pull back, it slices the potato, which allows it to pass through.
Instead of dropping all our feed into the bunk, offload everything in one shot, the guys will actually do either halves or thirds, depending on how it works out running through the lot. But everybody will get a shot. Cattle will move up. They're looking for potatoes. Once the potatoes run out, they got to get into the ration. So then later on, maybe an hour and a half or so later, they come in again. They'll drop another drop. And then the guys that have been standing there eating potatoes, they're probably full, back it out, and then the next group comes in, and we sort of try to break up that diet a bit that way. We store our potatoes, again, in the bunker that you'll see behind me. We don't have a roof over it at this point. We do have enough volume moving through that we usually don't have a problem, that we do have to cover it from the top. I mean, rain is only going to clean it, snow is only going to clean it, so it's really not a big deal. But again, everything is moved from the bunker into the processor, back into the loader, and into the feed truck, and it's a pretty quick process, really. When I look around, I mean, I look at alfalfa silage. We've got straw that goes into the diet. We've got the barley silage, oat silage, we've got cob meal, high moisture corn, sunflower screenings at times come into the diets as well. So we really look for those byproducts that aren't really being used for anything other than disposing onto fields very often. If they can't be heated by some companies, we're always looking for a place for a byproduct. And especially the potato, we've got a good energy value there and a good protein level, so it really helps our diets. The closer you are to a city and any of these manufacturing plants, the more you're going to start seeing byproduct come off. And for us, it's a matter of testing and how did the cattle respond. You know, is it palatable for them to eat? Is it something that we can handle, right? Freshness, storage, all those things are taken into account. I usually had to watch the guys if they're going to cheat on me on the rations, but now it's all dictated right through the program, right? So if they need a change made, for instance, if I all of a sudden have a moisture change on the corn silage or high moisture corn, it's really easy to do. I can input it into that ingredient into the computer, and all my rations that are sitting there, if there's 12 different rations sitting there, have an instant change on all the rations. I used to have to go and change every single ration on my program. Now I change the ingredient and all the rations change in moisture. And we have to factor the moisture in every ingredient because what fills that rumen is dry matter. That is the main area that we focus on, is the dry matter material that animal is digesting. So water is absorbed off to the side very quickly, and now we're digesting that dry matter, and that's the important thing that we have to focus on. And so dry matters are very important to us if we're over or under feeding our cattle. So those changes are easy. I do everything from probably 15 miles from here in my home. I make all my changes in the rations, and I'll visit the farm. I try to be here at least once a week to talk to the guys. It's not all just nutrient specs that I have to look at. It's how's this bunk performing, right? Are the cattle sorting? What's happening, right? So with that, I also do a lot of shaker box tests on all our forages that we have on the yard, just so I know length of cut and those types of things for the cattle. Especially when we get into finishing diets, we got to make sure we keep enough forage in that diet to keep that rumen functioning. Feeding the animal, I'm talking feeding that rumen, right? And if that rumen's healthy, we'll see it in manure performance. We're checking manures. We'll even test manure for starch just to give us an idea. Last fall, we had a bit of a battle trying to get our crop in, and we were questioning our starch digestibility. And so I'll do manure tests in the morning from a large group of cattle standing up, and I'll test that diet the night or the day before just to give us an idea of what starch levels going into that animal, what starch levels coming out of the animal. So there's been a lot of research done. We follow a lot of research out of the US because we have corn-based diets, and that's where a lot of corn is fed out of Nebraska and those regions. So those diets and that research coming out of those universities is probably where I spend most of my time, looking at data on corn distillers, some of those products that we feed, very common down in the US as well. And yeah, we get it down to detail. I mean, almost more than what we do ourselves. Well, the nutrition program, I've got one on my computer that I use to actually balance the diet, and then from there I move over to performance beef. So I'll run a couple of screens at home. I've got performance beef open on one side, I've got my nutrition program here, and I'll balance the diets, transfer everything across to performance beef, And then from there, the guys see everything on their screens within, well, seconds probably. As soon as our cloud is going to connect, those guys have everything on their screen. So it's really quick, it's seamless. Not only do I follow all my ingredients there on inventories and so on, we can also follow costs on all our ingredients. And then even on the animal side, our inventories. I'll run all of my inventories on the animal, on animal groups through there as well. So, and this year we created some barcodes for each group. So we've got lot numbers for every group that we do. And so we're trying to detail exactly how much is going through these animals. We're trying to detail our shrink on our products that we have on the yard, just to see what we're losing. We have forage treatment products we use on farm, and again, we want to put those to test through this system as well. For us, it's been a game changer. I mean, we're looking at a second phase to this now, and that is an animal health protocol that'll connect to our squeeze chute, and it'll run our health program as well. So we've been introduced to it. Again, we're not quite ready to implement, but there's some really neat features there to keep everything packaged together. Farming is in the blood. I really enjoy livestock and trying to get performance out of them. Just to see, looking at all factors. I mean, when it comes down from bedding to feed to weather to penning, looking at that whole picture and seeing how much performance can I get out of this animal, right? And what's really interesting is I've added the agronomy side as well, and just to see how we fertilize plants, grow that crop through the soil into the animal, right through, and the performance that we get in meat production. So it's really interesting connecting all ends of a nutrient, walking right through the food chain in essence.
Our staff is second to none. We got just an amazing group of guys here that just work their tail off day in and day out, and just great attitudes, and it's just a real pleasure to work with them. And I get to work with family, which 80% of the time is great. And yeah, I got three young sons coming up, and they're loving cattle and the farm life. So yeah, honestly, since I was 5, I've never really wanted to do anything else except farm. So I'm living my dream, and some days it feels like it, other days it doesn't. But yeah, for the most part, I just love it.